Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our midweek Leeds United catch-up with myself, Stephen Brown, and joining me as ever is Mr. Jason Booker. Jason, how are we doing, my friend?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Looking forward to the Easter weekend and all the festivities that will come with that. And when I say festivities, I mean football. I mean sport. It's a big sporting weekend. So I'm you know what? I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you're watching along live, please do smash a like on the video. It really helps out the channel. Get subscribing as well for all your Leeds United content, plus your other content for the teams across West Yorkshire. If you're watching this again later as well, get your comments in. What have you thought of what we've discussed? Jason, as you mentioned, bank holiday weekend, two massive games coming up, starting tomorrow night against Oxford. I mean, it's a great feeling. I mean, I've just been kind of on cloud nine with Leeds United this week. It's just a lovely feeling. 5 points clear at the top of the league. It feels like we're inching ever closer to getting back in the Premier League. As the title says, can we seal our Premier League return? It could be as soon as Monday if things work out in our favour. But I mean, it's just a contrast, isn't it, to maybe 2-3 weeks ago, where it kind of felt like it was going the other way. I mean, it's just a great feeling, isn't it, that we're in this position now of strength and looking to hopefully close the deal.
Yeah, I mean, we said it the other day, didn't we? But how quickly things can change in football is just crazy. Because after Luton, I mean, I was openly wobbling. I'd probably, for the first time, said I had serious doubts about the season. You know, I know a lot had fully gone. They had gone completely off the cliff. And Farke comes out with the comment that he comes out with, and you know, that we'll definitely be playing in the Premier League next season. And you know, then there was the debate of, is this arrogance? Who does he think he is? Like, that's going to come back to bite him if it's wrong. And then Wilder says the opposite, and he deals with it in his way. And you know, the contrast then since that day when Sheffield United go and lose to Oxford later on that day, and then follow it up with back-to-back losses after that, 3 losses in the row, and you know, Leeds follow up that pretty good now looking point away at Luton with back-to-back wins. It's just crazy, isn't it, how it falls, and we're now in a position which we could really only have dreamt of. And probably even at the start of the season, you'd have taken this position that we're in, especially given the fact that Sheffield United and Burnley have got to play each other in, 3 days' time. You know, Burnley, I mean, depends on what Sheffield United do tomorrow, doesn't it? Because if Sheffield United go out there and lose again, I mean, it's done, isn't it? It's as good as done. But if Sheffield United do go out there and win, it does put a whole host of pressure on the Monday game, especially if Burnley don't pick up all 3 points in their game. So, you know, there could be twists and turns, I'm feeling pretty confident. But if we go and lose to Oxford tomorrow, which is, very, very possible, they've done it to Sheffield United only as we say, a week ago, the tide changes again, doesn't it? And the pressure swings all the way back to us on Monday night. So yeah, it's going to be fun, mate. I'm trying again. I'm back to enjoying it again. So yeah, I'll try to.
Absolutely. Lee, here will be a great Easter weekend. We hope. I mean, obviously, Easter's not been too favourable for Leeds in the years gone by, but it feels like a slightly different situation. You know, I was thinking kind of the position we find ourselves in, and I think a lot of people have commented that the Preston game is where it feels like the crowd have really come alive at Elland Road. Because, there's been a debate this season about a kind of... I don't know, the atmosphere not being quite the same at Elland Road this season. Fans kind of, have high expectations. And it's like we mentioned kind of at the end of our other stream, it might have been off camera actually, where we're saying a lot of the games this season have been very routine, run-of-the-mill, comfortable wins where the game's wrapped up pretty early on. And it's almost that kind of thing where this was the period we were all waiting for, the last 6 games. Let's see where we're at the last 6 games. And now it feels like we're really plugged in. We're really kind of, there. And I feel like that game at the weekend just feels like it's really just lit the whole kind of atmosphere up. And it's going to be amazing, if we get it done. I think it's going to feel absolutely incredible. I think it almost adds to it, Jason, that we failed last year. The fact that we've had to go again. There's arguably more pressure this season, because I think if we did go up this season, we'd be, oh God, I mean, it would be a real summer of turmoil and churn. But I don't know about you, but it feels almost like we've kind of doubly earned it by the fact that we went so close last year. But then to come back again, losing, some core players as well, but fighting back and getting yourself into this position, I mean, it makes it sweeter in a way.
Yeah, very reminiscent of the second season under Bielsa, isn't it? With the way that we fell off, we dominated the whole season. We really should have gone up that year with the way that we played, and the fact that the two teams kind of pipped us to promotion, and then we lose out in the playoffs in the way that we did. It feels very reminiscent. And the second season, obviously, we went and did what we did, and it kind of looks like it's going to be the same again. I think it goes without saying that we've deserved it. We've definitely deserved to be one of them top two teams this season. And ultimately, come game week 46, you finish where you deserve. You have to take the certain amount of points, but there would be a certain amount of unjust if we weren't to go up this season, given the way that the land has fallen and the competition that we've had, and the way that the individual games have gone as well. It's not just it. So many moments this season where we really should have taken another 2 points and we haven't. From drawing a game at the end where we absolutely stonewall should have won them, and we can all isolate 3, 4, 5 of them, can't we? And they usually are isolated to one man, unfortunately. But that is part of the game. But you don't usually see them so consistently throughout a season in the way that we've seen this season. As XG just shows you how much further in front of the rest of the division that we should be. The goals, that we should have scored on top of what we've already scored as a record high. So yeah, it would feel very unjust if we don't go. But I don't think we're gonna have that to worry about. I think we're gonna get it done. It's gonna be a really, really interesting weekend and a really sweet moment, I hope, when it does all kind of fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the kind of fallouts from the position we find ourselves in now is those transfer rumours are ramping up. I do want to get your take on a few of the early bird rumours going round, because there's a lot of names. All of a sudden now this gap's appeared, the names are dropping in, and you can expect it. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. Looking forward to starting in the Premier League and that summer transfer window, for me, I'm buzzing. I'll be completely honest with you. This summer, even though there's no football on, I'll just be buzzing, like looking at the rumors. Who we're going to sign? Who are we going to get? Another Rafinha? Who's going to come in? Who's going to excite us? Who's going to? I'm so looking forward to it. Whereas last season it was like just whoever we need to get. It was just like I don't care, just whatever. I just want to get promoted. It was just like get it done, get through it. Whereas I think it'll feel this summer, it'll feel really exciting, and I can't wait. I can't wait. Honestly, I'll be looking at the transfer rumours every day, like an absolute nutter. I honestly can't wait. So I want to get your take on a few of the names that have kind of popped up as possible Leeds United targets. We're going to start in net, because obviously that's probably going to be one of the positions that we're going to be focusing on, really. I think we've both kind of said, and you made a great point about, look, if it has to be Darlow in the Premier League, I wouldn't be too against that, actually, because he's solid and he's played in it before. But some of the names cropping up, Aaron Ramsdale, 26-year-old England goalkeeper, former Arsenal goalkeeper. He's got a 25 million relegation release clause. I think I know your opinion of this goalkeeper already, but you may have not have expressed it on the channel. But Aaron Ramsdale, Jason, would you be going near him?
No. He's at Southampton for a reason. I know that he had, I would say, probably a good 6 months at Arsenal, but he was very quickly usurped by.
There was a point where he seemed really like riding a crest of a wave, like, oh, he's the man, and then like you say, it was just.
Yeah, I mean, he's good with his feet, which is so often the kind of guys around the goalkeeper nowadays. But he's very erratic. He's Jordan Pickford without being as good at saving shots. like, you know what I mean? He's got all of Jordan Pickford's bad traits, but not all of his good ones. For me, he's not it. He's not, like, when you're needing a keeper to really get you out of a bit of stick, and you know he's going to be facing a lot of shots. He's not the man that I would want between the sticks, if I'm honest. He got relegated at Sheffield United. He got relegated at Bournemouth. He's going to now get relegated again at Southampton. Like, I know that applies to Ethan Ampadu as well. I know he had a few relegations on his CV and whatnot, but for me, he's not the answer at all.
No. A couple other players on the list in terms of goalkeepers. I mean, one name on here straight away, I don't think it'll happen because he's likely playing in a team that are going to go up with us. It's James Trafford, 22, Burnley keeper, who's been absolutely sensational. You look at his figures from this season. I mean, let's say Sheffield United cling in there, they beat Burnley, and they somehow turn it around and usurp Burnley to that automatic spot as well. James Trafford, is he the kind of profile you'd be looking at for the Premier League, do you think?
Yeah, well, without a doubt. I've just seen Gavin's comment, and it's already making me kind of laugh a little bit because I think we're going to have some disagreements with the chat. Yeah, I think we're going to have some disagreements with the chat. Like, and I've seen this on other social media. I've seen it on Twitter as well. The take that some fans are having towards our potential signings is absolutely wild. Some of the players that they're saying that we should go for, and the way that they're talking about some of the ones that we're linked with is just insane. They're forgetting where we are and the players that we're going to be in the ballpark for. Well, I mean, straight away, Gavin's gone and done it straight away. He's put himself to the bottom of my estimations. We'll come to him. I don't want to ruin that. Sorry, Gav, but you have no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, sorry, I'm going to bring it back on the topic. James Trafford would be an unreal signing, but it ain't going to be one that's going to happen. James Trafford's going to find a potential club after this season that's going to be way beyond Leeds United in their first season in the Premier League. And to be fair to James Trafford, he deserves a whole host of credit because I wasn't that sold on him, if I'm honest, before this season. I thought when he'd played for Burnley, I think it was too soon for him in the Premier League, if I'm honest. I think he'd stepped up one season too soon.
Well, hasn't he, to kind of have this season, hasn't he? After
that, really? Well, Muric displaced him, who I don't like either. And he's gone on Ipswich, and they're going to get relegated. They're going to get relegated, and he's going to be back as a Championship keeper as well. And I think that's kind of where his ceiling was. But I think Trafford is now he's definitely going to be ready for that step up. Trafford is by far the best Championship keeper there is, but I think we'll see him at Newcastle, won't we, by the looks of it. And maybe that'll lead us on nicely to another man that was linked to us, and kind of jumping ahead for one that I'm sure you've got on the list.
Nick's on my list, yeah.
Yeah, is Nick Pope. And I think Nick Pope would actually be a really, really good signing for Leeds United. A really logical signing, very experienced, not great with his feet, which would potentially be a bit of a problem dependent on the way that Farke wants to set it up in the Premier League. But we've seen with Darlow as an example that it can work, it can operate. And in the Premier League, I think the need to play out from the back is going to be less. And the importance of having a shot stopper that's going to win us games is going to be much higher. And Nick Pope proved for year after year after year that he did that at Burnley. I mean, he was sensational. He kept him up as their player of the season for 2 or 3 seasons in a row. He was sensational. He's great under pressure. He's great at coming and claiming crosses. He can save penalties. Like, he's a top keeper. I'd be really, really happy with Nick Pope. And it would mean that we could go and use some of our budget somewhere else because it's not going to cost an arm and a leg to go and sign. He's at a stage of his career where we don't have to promise him the earth. We could probably get him on a 2-year deal and he'd be happy to come and be number 1 in the Premier League for Leeds United. So I think it's a really, really smart, solid signing. Some would be unflattered by it. There'll be definitely some in the chat that won't see the merits around signing Nick Pope. We are going to be, hopefully, a newly promoted club. And the way that the Premier League has transitioned in the 4 years since we did it last time it's a world of difference. It's not the same. So, I think that'd be a super signing, mate, if I'm honest. I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but apparently he's not been offered a new contract by Newcastle, so it looks as if there's going to be an opportunity. Like you say, if they're in for Trafford, could be a real golden opportunity there. And I would love it. 32 years of age, vastly experienced, like you say, played at clubs, at the wrong end of the league as well, so he's used to,
Yeah.
battening down the hatches. So yeah,
I
and I
do
think
understand Newcastle moving on from him. However, I do understand the time, but they're in a totally they're third in the Premier League, guys. You know what I mean? It's a totally different stratosphere right now as to what we're looking at. So
yeah, absolutely. Going on to midfielders then, because I think defenders generally. I mean, there's going to be question marks at left back, and there's not any specific names that have cropped up on that front. It's going to be a huge position to fill, but in terms of actual kind of rumours that I've seen, we're moving on to midfielders now. Someone I don't know a lot about him, to be honest. It's Hidemasa Morita. I hope I've said that right. Who plays for Sporting now, 29-year-old Japanese midfielder. Apparently, he's a serious candidate for Leeds. Now, we've mentioned obviously he's got his compatriot Outd'S there next to him. We'd mentioned about that kind of Japanese mentality and that kind of thing. It would kind of click in with that. Is he anyone you know anything much about, Jason? I mean, is that kind of could be one of those deals where it's kind of off the radar, but actually, I mean, if you're playing for Sporting, mug.
yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about him. I know who he is, and I know that he at the end of the day, with the Japanese, as we said in the stream the other day, they're industrial, they're committed, they're often always available. You don't have, many injury-plagued situations because of the way that they kind of adopt themselves and look after themselves. It's hard to say whether he'd be the right player, but I think in terms of what we've seen with the 49ers is that they are very shrewd with the recruitment in and out of this country. They go and obviously make the deals happen within the UK borders with the likes of Ethan Ampadu as an example, Joe Perreault, who's obviously was playing in the Championship, among others, Joe Rodon as another one. But then they're prepared to take, I'm going to say, quote unquote, gamble with the likes of an Outd'S who can come in. I look at Ilya Gruev with that as well. These players will come for a fraction of the price than if they were playing within these shores. But hopefully they've got the qualities that they then can adapt to the Premier League or the Championship as it has been this season and last season. So, yeah, I think I would back the 49ers with them. And again, there'll be a lot of people that would look at something like that. Who's that? Like, I don't know who that is. Like, and just instantly write them off as a bad signing. That's just not fair and it's not correct. And I think you're probably going to come to another one in the German midfielder Weigl. You might have
29-year-old, isn't he? Yeah.
You see now he is somebody.
Mönchengladbach captain.
Mönchengladbach, yeah, he's somebody that I do know a lot of. German international. Really, really good defensive midfielder, can play at centre-back as well. Really, really good player. And again, I think he'd be unflattering for a lot of Leeds fans because he's just not a marquee name. A bit like when we signed Diego Llorente as an example. Like, he was a marquee name at a point. Rodrigo's another one. Weigl would be one that would kind of go under the radar, but he would offer us that top-level quality that we won't have a lot of, and some valuable experience in a key area of the pitch. He can play in a number of positions, like I say, and he's got a huge top level experience. You don't make caps for Germany without being a proper player. So, and he's comfortable on the ball, comfortable in possession, he's press resistant, he's got a good range of passing, he's good in the tackle. And so I'd be really, really happy with Weigl as a signing. I feel really weird talking about all these. I've been really adamant. We're not doing this until after Monday.
Tempting fate, isn't it? It's just there's so many of them. I was like, I have to get Jason's take.
Yeah, no, fair.
A couple of names I don't know much about them, but you've got Raskin at Rangers, 23-year-old Rangers midfielder who's good energy about him, could offer some depth in central midfield. Brahima Diarra have got on this list, who plays for Al Wahadi, and he's a young midfielder, could be looked at as like a long-term investment for the squad. But a couple of more experienced names popping up. One who we know very, very well indeed, but Thomas Souček, the West Ham midfielder. That's one that's just kind of popped up again. You're going to get these reactions where people are saying that's not what we need to be aiming at. I mean, if I remember it, there was one player that someone said we should sign, and you just kind of, I was like, Benjamin Sesko, someone was saying Leeds should go.
Well, it's probably Gavin. It's probably Gavin. Gavin's gone, I don't want Evan Ferguson, I want Ben Sesko, who literally has the pick of all the clubs. This is the problem, because fans play Football Manager or they play FIFA and just think that that's how transfers go. And like Benjamin Sesko can literally go anywhere in the world and have his pick of the clubs. But then they'll scoff at the likes of, you know, Evan Ferguson, who I know we're going to come to. I've seen people scoffing at Tammy Abraham as a potential, like, in what world are you living? Like, I can understand somebody coming in and questioning injuries. I can understand that with certain players, and I know we'll get on to them, but the quality around the players in discussion and the position in which we're going to be in the league. I said in the review I came on Monday, Browney, and I would take finishing 17th on the opening day on goal difference. I genuinely would. Like, the only thing that matters next season is finishing 17th or above and staying up. That's it. Any fan that thinks it's going to be anything like the Bielsa first season in the Premier League is living on clown cuckoo land. They're literally living in the clouds. So Thomas Souček, what a signing that would be. I don't see that happening. I actually think he probably strikes me as somebody that could go back into Europe somewhere, play in the top division, maybe even get a Europa Conference League team and play maybe in Bulgaria, towards the top end. Germany, I think there'd be clubs that would want him, even at his age. But I think that'd be a top signing. He'd get you goals from corners and set pieces. He'd give us another way of playing. He'd give us some valuable experience. And I actually think he's a top player. I think he's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
So, Thomas Souček, I would be all over. Again, it'd be low cost as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one on the list, the Yorkshire Pearl, our very own Kalvin Phillips. Obviously, big move to Man City. His career was absolutely blooming at that point. He was England Player of the Year. Won a treble with City, didn't play too much. And then since then, it's not really worked for him. He's lost his England place. He's had a failed loan move to West Ham. He's moved to Ipswich, and he doesn't seem to be getting much game time there either. For the record, I absolutely love Kalvin Phillips. I mean, talk about one of my favourite players. Yeah, absolutely. I just thought him in that Bielsa team was the Yorkshire Pearl. It was absolutely just an amazing player to watch, and I absolutely loved it. I think the high point was watching him in the Euros for England, and it was like, come on, a Leeds lad doing that for England, taking us to a final. It was just a perfect story, really. But for me, I would say no. I wouldn't be moving in that direction. I just think, from bits I've seen and just the general picture of it, I don't know if it'd be the right move, Jason. I mean, how do you feel about that? Obviously, there's a lot of emotional attachment to KP, but is it the right move for Leeds, do you think, if we get promoted?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, if I'm honest, and it pains me to say it because we all love him. And the player that he was under Bielsa was absolutely essential. We mentioned him the other day alongside the importance of Pat Bamford and Pablo Hernandez in that team. He was the absolute linchpin under Bielsa, but Bielsa sprinkled stardust on him and got a different player out of him. And I think KP's only suited to that single pivot number 4 position. He can't do what we would need him to do in this side. We don't play with that player. I know we play with like the Gruev that drops into the back line, but that it's not the same as what he did under Bielsa. We don't play with the long switching balls in the same way to the wings, and I just struggle to see where he would fit in. And then you throw in the inactivity over 3 years. You throw in the injuries, which he always had, by the way. He had it before he left City. I remember arguing with Leeds fans that 40 million were good money. I thought 40 million were really good money for Kalvin, given the circumstances and given the injuries. And he would miss 10 to 15 games every season. So I always thought it was a good value given, and it has now been proven that it was. So I would really struggle to see how we would make that deal work. The only way that I could see that deal working would be if we paid 20% of his wages, because he's on 150 grand a week now at City. Still got another 2 years, I think, there. We pay 20% of his wages, and he's happy coming back and fighting for his place. And maybe he rediscovers form in the Leeds shirt, in front of the Leeds crowd. Maybe he can get back to something like his best. But we don't want to have to be putting so much of his budget into a situation where we might not even get the player that we need. You know, he's only on the bench for Ipswich, which tells you everything. He's behind Sam Morsey, who's an awful midfielder. So, yeah, for me, I would stay clear, as much as it kind of pains me to say it. I think that's the truth.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. I think it's just one of those. I remember when Marsh came and took over, and although it was only a small sample size, you could almost see immediately when he wasn't in that kind of single pivot role. The magic wasn't there, was it? It was just kind of gone, and I can't imagine being able to rediscover that. Unfortunately, if you'd have asked me a couple of years ago, I'd have probably said, yeah, let's get him back. But yeah, not now. Moving on to forwards then, Jason, someone we were linked with in January, another Southampton player that that I've seen kind of doing the rounds, Cameron Archer. Now, apparently, there's been links saying Leeds are hopeful for a summer move. Obviously Southampton relegated. He's wanting Premier League football still. I mean, where would you stand on that one?
This is a really interesting one, because in January I was really for signing him when we really needed him as an option. We didn't know Bamford was coming back at that point and all the rest of it that comes with that. We've wanted him before. We wanted him before Pirot, is what I'm led to believe, and he ended up going to Sheffield United and all that then went with that. I really like Cameron Archer, but his goals don't really stack up in the Premier League. He's never done it at all in the Premier League. However, he's only been at Sheffield United, who were awful, and Southampton, who at the moment are statistically the worst Premier League team ever. So is that the basis of what you would, review him on? I think that would be harsh. And I think he's got massive potential. I think he's got resale value, as has been proven over the last 2 years with his other two previous clubs. So I think it's a real tricky one. I think there's some positives and minuses to that one, negatives and positives. But I think as part of a squad, I'd be all right with it. Dependent on the fee, I'd be quite happy with it. And I think there'd be a player in there that would improve us. So depends on the fee, but it ain't my money, is it, I suppose? So I'm going to say yes, it'd be a good squad signing. I don't think I would want him to be the best number 9 that we sign, if that makes sense. Yeah. And he can play 10 as well, so that's worth bearing in mind. Yeah,
absolutely. Jonathan Rowe, who I'm sure there was a rumour about him a few years ago with Leeds.
No, but this season. He went to Marseille in January, in the summer. Yeah, he went to Marseille in the summer, didn't he?
It was last summer, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but he's been on loan at Marseille. Always high potential player. I don't really know how he's got on at Marseille and kind of what his prospects look like at the moment. But he's kind of, it's funny how those players just kind of, once they're on the radar, they're just like Cameron Archer, I suppose. It's kind of hovered, don't they, in that region. Could you see realistically any kind of move being done there?
The only, because when we didn't sign Johnny Rowe, we then got Ramazani. So the only world in which I see us signing a Johnny Rowe is if Ramazani moves on or we don't sign Manor Solomon on a permanent. I'm pretty sure that Manor Solomon will sign as a permanent. I feel really confident about that if we go up. Yeah. Ramazani, I think there's probably going to be a few wounds there come the end of the season. But if he, sorts his mindset out and gets his head down, he can be a Premier League winger for Leeds United. So Johnny Rowe is a potential, but if we've got the 4 that we've got next season, that is probably the area of the pitch that I'd be most comfortable going into with what we've got.
Yeah.
Because I do think that they've all got Premier League potential to be able to step up. I'd really like Dan James having another crack at it in the Premier League after the 2 years that he's had in the Championship. I think he gives you a bit of experience and guile that we're going to need. He gives us a different way to play. Mano, we know, is well capable of playing at the Premier League. He would be the player that we would look to probably keep us up. That's how I see. If we were to sign him and got a full Premier League season out of him, he could be the difference. Because the teams in the bottom three this season, you go and have a look at them. Apart from with Ipswich with Delap, I would say, and it's still probably too soon for him. They don't have any stardust. They don't have any real special player. So yeah, I'd be happy with that area of the pitch. So I'd have to probably say no, given the options that we have. But like I said, that could change if one of them were to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the next one, obviously, this is the one that stirred up a few feelings earlier in the conversation, but Evan Ferguson. Now this is a link that's just kind of popped up. He's currently on loan at West Ham. He's only 20. Kind of burst onto the scene at Brighton. Very physical player, got lots of goal scoring potential. Not necessarily worked in the last kind of couple of years. I think when De Zerbi left Brighton, it kind of tailed off a bit, and then he's gone to West Ham, and that's not really worked. But I think West Ham are just a basket case of a club. I mean, I just don't know what's wrong with that club. I really don't. Evan Ferguson, I mean, like you said, it has stirred up kind of wild takes, like people saying, I'd sign him as a backup and that kind of thing. But I mean, where do you stand? Because he's obviously someone that he's been on your radar years. I think you've known about him for a long time, haven't you, back in your scouting days and whatnot?
Yeah. So, I mean, quick Evan Ferguson story. So, first off, I actually mentioned him in January as a potential loan signing before he went to West Ham. He would have been perfect in January because he needed to rebuild. And I made the suggestion, I don't know if I made it live, but I certainly made it between the WhatsApp group, Evan Ferguson on loan, permanent deal as if we go up, as an option clause. It had just been perfect. And I think it had been a better move for him than what he's ended up having at West Ham. And I understand the West Ham move, Potter and all the rest of it. He has had an ACL cruciate ligament injury April last year, I think it was. He's out for best part of 5 months, and then he's obviously had the change in manager, which has then obviously coincided with him coming back from fitness, and he struggled to get back. The lad's 20-year-old, 20-year-old. And 2 years ago, before the injury, he was linked with 40, 50 million pound moves to the biggest clubs in the world. So this lad is no mug. I first saw Evan Ferguson just turned 16 playing an under-21s game for Brighton when I was scouting for Stockport for loan potential, and he was on the bench that day, and he came on after about 15-20 minutes for the striker Florian Andone, who some might know. He was like the over 25 player that was playing in that game that day, so he got injured. Evan Ferguson came on, and he absolutely destroyed everybody on the pitch. He was bodying players that were 4 or 5 years older than him. He was just knocking them off the ball. Didn't score, but everything that he did was just class. The laying off of the ball, the bringing other players into play, the way that he peeled off at the back post. You could see his finishing ability as well. And I was there to watch. The main player that I was looking at that day was Moises Caicedo, who ended up obviously going on to Chelsea. And this before he'd ever even played first team. Both of them had not played first team. And they stood out by an absolute mile. And I've banged on about Evan Ferguson ever since that day because he stood out that much. And within, I don't know, maybe 6 months, he was playing first team football for Brighton. He was coming off the bench and doing what he was doing. And, that first season where he was one of their main choice strikers, he scored a good number of goals. Now, he hasn't scored for a period of time, but scoring Premier League goals is not very easy. It's even more difficult when you're injured and you've been out for a period of time. Evan Ferguson would be an unreal signing for Leeds United at this stage. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand the fitness concerns. I absolutely hear it. But the ACL operation seems to be behind him. It doesn't seem to be that's the problem. It seems to be full match fitness and getting back into confidence. He would be exactly what we needed. Even if we only saw 7 or 8 Premier League goals out of him, that'd be insane. Because again, our goals come from the wings. He would be able to facilitate what goes on within a Daniel Farke system so well. I would be absolutely stoked if we signed Evan Ferguson. I honestly, I can't think of many others that are realistic that I would want more than him. If we can get the full fitness out of him, and imagine the resale is 20. Yeah, unfortunately, we're in a world in which we have to buy like that for potential sell-on to rebuild and go again and all the rest of it, he could be worth 60, 70, 80 million, because that's what strikers, that's what happens to top quality strikers, isn't it? So yeah, I'd be so buzzing.
At his best, then, how do you view him as a striker? Is he kind of like all-round, kind of complete forward, can head, can press, can finish, can just do a bit of everything?
Yeah, mate, he'd be perfect. He's massive. He's a massive, massive lad, strong. I think Chris Wood, but faster. That's the kind of the player that I would probably, think of him. He's good on both feet. He's a bit more agile than Chris Wood as well. Like, he can move a little bit better. He's very good in the air. Like I said, his link-up play is excellent. His link-up play is absolutely sensational. He's composed in front of goal. He's got a real eye for goal. And like I say, he's 20. You can't just rule out every player that's had an injury. Like, you just can't do that. Now, again, fans get hung up on the money, but it ain't our money. Like, it's not us that are spending it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and at the end of the day, if that's where they decide to move the budget, and we've been pretty prudent with what we've done with the money over the last couple of transfer windows to make sure that we've got the arsenal that we need to stay up. Now, I do hear that I don't want him to be the only one, but he ain't going to be the only one. We would still have probably Joe Perreault. We probably would have a Cameron Archer as well. You are not going to get much better than Evan Ferguson when you're hoping to finish 17th. You're not. That's just it. And Gav, I can see you can't. Like, he's not injured. He's not injured now. He has been injured, and that's why he lost his place in the Brighton team. The change in manager and the timing of that was very, very unfortunate. But come on, like, we have to be fair. Like, what do we do? Just not sign any player that's ever had an injury or ever fallen out of favour with the manager? It just makes no sense.
So yeah, look at that. That's proof. Everyone would doubt Anna Solomon's fitness, isn't it? But
there's countless others, isn't there? Countless others. To Brighton are very, very good at producing players, but at the end of the day, they can only work within the confines of the manager, and if the manager doesn't want them, then they're not required. I mean, they also sold the German midfielder to Dortmund. Does that mean that the mugs because they've sold a player that's now playing in the Champions League semi-final? It makes no sense. Like, football is not as binary as that. No. You know what I mean? It's not. So yeah, you don't understand the player you don't understand the player that you'd have on your hands. I'm telling you, even if we could get 80% out of what he was and the potential for him to grow, he's 20 years old. He's a serious, serious talent.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of outgoings, one positive piece of news as well. Rasmus, the deal is kind of done. He's off to Frankfurt on a permanent deal, 7.7 million for Rasmus.
Crazy.
You've just got just a bizarre transfer, really, because when he came in, you saw the little preview videos. And you look at the guy, and he looks like an absolute beast. He looks like a villain from a Rocky film or something. He looks like like he's going to be an absolute beast. And I think a lot of people wanted to kind of give him cult hero status before he'd even kicked a ball. But unfortunately for him, just over the course of that Jesse Marsh season, it just became apparent that he was just, for me, one of the worst players I've ever seen play for the club. I just kind of I couldn't understand him as a footballer at all. For like a big bloke, he had like so little physically. A couple of slide tackles is about the height of his contribution, and like one good cross at Anfield.
We got one goal, didn't we? I think at Wolves away when he played midfield. I think it was weird. Yeah,
but terrible signing, terrible player, and we've got a bit of money for him, which is help. He's another one of the loanees off the books. So another positive. There was never any chance that guy could be back playing for this club again, because it would have been unthinkable, even in the Championship.
Yeah, he would have looked out of place in the Championship. He was terrible, absolutely terrible. The fact that we've managed to make profit on him is insane. It really is. It's insane. awful footballer. Couldn't defend, couldn't attack, couldn't run, couldn't pass. Like I don't know. I maybe he's playing well for Frankfurt now. Maybe we just got the worst out of him. I'm not sure, but really poor player. And the thing that wound me up the most about him was when he was pictured coming back in on the video at the end, at the beginning of last season, when he knew he were on his way out anyway, and he were laughing and joking. Oh my God, that wound me up something chronic.
Yeah.
And then he ended up going to Roma. I mean, this guy must have the best agent in world football.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Rome, didn't it?
Insane.
Jesus.
So under Mourinho, I mean, he didn't play. They hated him as well, didn't they? So, but you know what? It is what it is. It's done. Not every transfer works out. No. And he moves on, and thankfully, so do we. Because it could have very easily been another release on a free loan forever and never see any money. So, yeah, quite happy with it, really.
Good riddance. Jack Harrison, that's one that's kind of looming as well, isn't it? What's going to happen with Harrison? I mean, he's another one I never want to see at the football club again. I mean, for me, really burnt his bridges, and probably the one out of the whole Bielsa babes that I least connected to, least affection for. The Everton fans can't stand him, though, the majority. I mean, just look at some of the comments about him from Everton fans, and it's exactly what Leeds fans have said. And another player without Bielsa just looks nothing. Just looks absent. I mean, so I watched him the other week, and Jesse was terrible. He didn't look like a Premier League player. He was awful.
Yeah, no, he's not good, is there? I mean, I was watching some clips of the Premier League season 1 the other day. I was watching all the goals. I ended up getting it recommended. I ended up getting recommended. And he was very, very pivotal in a lot of the goals that we scored. Brilliant. He was. And I think he's got a serious confidence issue, Jack Harrison. I've heard a couple of times he's got he's had interviews where he's explained about the struggles that he has with his confidence and employing coaches and gurus and therapists and all sorts of different things to try and tackle this problem that he has, which is really sad. Like it is hard when you're inside your own head and you're a professional athlete that's trying to perform at the highest level. That said, he's a professional athlete at the top level, and you are scrutinized for your ability and your level of football that you show on the pitch. And for far too long, for Leeds and now for Everton, hot and cold Harrison, we used to call him it. He gets called it throughout a lot of the Leeds United circles. He for me is not a player that I would want to see back at Leeds United. Not just because of the way that he left and the things that have come and his mum and all the rest of it. More just him as a footballer. I don't really want to have to watch him play. But I do think he probably gets treated a little bit harshly for some of what he gave us. Some of what he gave us.
I think you're right.
I think there's
some of the contributions were. Yeah, I mean, the hat-trick against West Ham, and, there's a lot of real good moments he had. And he looked like he was getting better. There was one stage where I thought, Harrison, God, he's just turning into like a really quality player. But as soon as, Bielsa's gone and that kind of influence starts to wane, it just looks like he's not really developed.
The problem is with Jack, it was all in pockets. It wasn't for sustained periods over a season. It was for 3 games and then he'd go missing for the next 9.
Yeah.
But in them 3 games, he'd get 7 G&A. It was really weird with him, and that's how he kind of always kind of looked after himself, and he was in that, and he'd score, but then over the other 88 minutes of the game, he'd do nothing. He was just a strange player.
We need to ask our resident Everton fan, Richo66, what's going on, man? Would you be happy with him or what? Let us know, Richo. Do you want to see a permanent move for Harrison at Everton? How Bradford City getting on there, Jason?
They're winning 1-0. Sorry, I'm just
The Bantams. This is for our mate Gaz in the group chat. Do it for Gaz. Good stuff there. Just in terms of recruitment and that, I mean, obviously there's going to be a few changes in the summer. We know Everton, Richo again, Angus Kinnear is making the move there. I think they were on about Nick Hammond going as well with him. What do you think that recruitment structure looks like at Leeds? Is there any concerns by losing, a couple of key positions, especially Hammond in that kind of recruitment area? Are you worried at all that this isn't really the time you want those kind of disturbances, or are you know, do you have the faith that no, there's enough in place, there's enough, you know, kind of there to kind of make sure it's a good summer? Because I mean, recruitment is going to be everything, isn't it?
Yeah, I am a little bit concerned about the timing of all of this.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it feels uncomfortable, doesn't it?
yeah,
It feels like
it
no,
does.
not now. Like,
yeah, it does, and I really like the work that Nick Hammond's done. I'll be honest with you, I quite like Angus Kinnear. Like, I know a lot don't like what he has come out and said over the years, but I always thought he was a voice piece for the owner, and I think there's a real reason why the 49ers decided to keep him, and he's been then part of the success that we've had over the last 2 years. And I think we can all agree that the recruitment in general, since Victor Orta has left, has been nigh on perfect. There's been one or two, which is always going to be, but the large majority of the recruitment has been absolutely spot on. So, yeah, a little bit concerned, but I do trust the 49ers at the moment to put it right and go out and get people in their place to make sure that it continues. You know, Gret Steinson's around still in a different capacity, and Jordan Miles in it as well, who's in and around the club. I still have enough confidence that they'll
well, these things need to be happening now, don't they? And probably need, you know, that's where my concern is, where it's like, who's drawing up those plans?
Yeah.
If some figure is leaving, what happens to the plans, and where are we that? Because, you know, we can't, you know, well, I mean, we'll live and die on our recruitment this summer, no doubt.
100%. Recruitment's everything, Brownie.
Yeah.
Recruitment is absolutely everything. You know, you can have your arguments about Daniel Farke of whether he's the right man or not. You can have your argument about the 49ers, the Premier League gap, the players that we've already got there now. Will they be able to do it, and all the rest of it? None of it will matter if they don't get the recruitment right. If you get the recruitment right, you give yourself a fighting chance of staying up, even with all of the other potential, you know, things that could work out or not. You know, I think Daniel Farke is probably more adequate for the Premier League than a lot of people think he is, based on the past experiences with him. The big difference will be the recruitment. Ultimately, if we go down or if we fail badly, Daniel Farke will get sacked either way, but it won't be because of Daniel Farke. It'll be because we've not brought the players in through the doors. I'm telling you that now, or the right players through the door. So, yeah, I hope that, you know, Daniel Farke doesn't prove me wrong with that and can show himself to be of an adequate level. You know, you compare that Norwich team as an example to the three that are going to go down this season. I would say it's probably in and among them three teams, certainly Ipswich in terms of level of quality, and Norwich was still more competitive than all three of them have been. So, you know, especially the first time he took them back down. So, yeah, it all hinges on that. There's some key positions. Striker is essential, absolute necessary. As much as I like Perron, I think he can build into a Premier League player, hopefully. I wouldn't want him to be starting week in, week out in the Prem. 10, a midfielder, a centre-back, and a keeper. The spine, basically. I mean, we're going to need more than that as well, because we're going to need a left-back. You know, we are almost certainly going to need a left-back. I can't see this situation with Junior changing, nor do I really even am that bothered about it changing, for the fact that I don't want him to be the starting left-back anyway. So, yeah, I think there's going to be, well, we know there's going to be a lot to do, mate. A lot to do. But fans really need to curb their expectations in terms of the players that they think that we're going to be able to go for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. 100% agree. Okay, well, moving back to the football, it's Oxford up next. It's Gary Rowett, who's taken over there, and, you know, they've had an upturn in form. Obviously newly promoted, they're sitting in 17th. You know, and look, their aim would have been to survive, which, you know, they're making a real fist of it. Some fantastic wins, beating Wednesday. Sheffield United, obviously, got a great home win against Watford. And, you know, it's going to be a tricky encounter for Leeds. I personally am looking forward to it. I think we're going to be full of confidence going into this. We've got no reason why we can't be full of confidence. I think if we play to our strengths, you know, I think we'll do it. But it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Oxford, one of those teams. I mean, just newly promoted into the Championship, and they've made a real fist of it. They've done a great job. Gary Rowett now, we know about this guy. We know how experienced he is. He's had a couple of big results against Farke in the past. What are your thoughts ahead of this game? How are you feeling going into this one?
I mean, I think they've done a monster job, if I'm honest with you. I think they've done a really, really good job. I didn't think they'd stand a chance.
No.
And, when you see them on paper, they're not a great side at all. They've got a League One side for the majority of that team, really. They came up through the playoffs last season, would have been considered the least favourite out of the three to stay up. As it stands, they're actually the best placed of the three. They've done incredibly well, especially over this last, since Gary Rowett took over. I actually thought it was a really harsh sacking when Buckingham won it. Buckingham.
Yeah,
I think that's the manager's name, or the previous manager's name. Was sat. I thought, what are they expecting given what they have at their disposal, where they've come from, the fact that they were punching way above the weight to get promoted anyway. Their best player left in Murphy in the summer to go to one of the other promotion rivals. So, promotion rivals from League One. So, I think it's a really, really interesting matchup. Obviously, they did what they did against Sheffield United the other day. I think at Elland Road, we showed the quality difference between the two. Away from home, it's going to be totally different. It's going to be a completely different experience. They're almost safe. I think that maybe one more point might do them. And they, on the back of the Leeds game, have got a relegation 6-pointer against Portsmouth. I think they play one of the other teams that are right down there on Monday. So it could work one or two ways for us. That could be that they put everything into Monday night, or they see this as a complete free hit and come out and play with a bit of freedom. So I think it's a real tricky one. And, I want to see us win. I think we will win. I'm fairly confident going into the game. I do think, given on the back of the two pressure cookers of the last two games, I think this will be a nice game for us. But if we do come away with only a point, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, like it's happening again. Like I wouldn't be like throwing the baby out of the bathwater, as they say. Like I'd be all right. And I think it would then set us up fairly nicely for Monday for Sheffield United to be going to Burnley. I'm kind of expecting Sheffield United to win tomorrow. They can't not win tomorrow. Surely they beat Cardiff at home. Surely they do. So I'm not even allowing myself to entertain a potential away win there. If Cardiff do win there tomorrow, it's over. It's over. It's done. I will say we're in the Premier League. Yeah, congratulations, Leeds United. I will say it's done. But I just can't see it. I think there's more, personally, I don't know what you think, but I think there's more chance of it being a 2-point gap after tomorrow than it is of being an 8-point gap after tomorrow.
I agree. Yeah.
And I know that's a negative, pessimistic way of looking at it, but I do believe that that's a game. I still think we'll
freak out.
Yeah, they'll be freak. They'll be complete freak. But I do think that that's the more likely. I think we both win. I think that's how it ends up playing out. Monday comes, Burnley beat them, Leeds win, promotion done. That's how I think it's going to play out. Yeah,
Wrapped up.
As simple as that, right?
Well, there's one stat around Oxford that I think if Mellier had still been in net, I'd have been a little bit worried about this. And this is because Oxford apparently have had the lowest shots attempted in the Championship, and we all know it didn't seem to take many shots, did it, on a Leeds goal to actually back. How many games did we watch, Jason, where the opposition had like 2 chances and scored 1?
Scored them both.
Yeah, but not with our man Darlow in net. I think that's a change. Good stuff. Excellent. Well, I think we'll leave it there this evening. So thank you everyone who got involved in the chat and commented. Let us know your thoughts if you're watching this video again later. What you've made on our transfer rumours and Oxford preview as well. Myself and Jason, we will be back tomorrow evening, won't we, Mr. Booker?
Yeah, mate.
For a post-match against Oxford, where hopefully we're even closer to that Premier League dream. But we will wait and see.
I'm watching them all tomorrow. Tomorrow. Yeah. 3, 5, 8 o'clock. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Oh, God, amazing. Yeah, I'm jealous. Just the Leeds one for me, just the Leeds one. Day at the seaside. But there we go. yeah, we will be back tomorrow. Please smash a like on the video if you've not already done so, and do remember to subscribe to the channel as well for further Leeds content, including tomorrow night, where myself and Jason will be on straight after the full time whistle with our thoughts. So thank you very much for watching. I've been Stephen Brown. Alongside me has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Let's do it all again tomorrow. We'll see you
Thanks.
then. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.